Take us in, Chris.
All right, Blue Collar Millionaires. We are here. Me and Kevin have a special guest today. This guy has made an impression in both of our lives. He has got a rags to riches journey, and I know you guys love to hear those stories. The inspiration that comes from those are incredible. So, Tim, tell us a little bit about yourself and where you're at and what got you started.
Yeah, man. Well, hey, first of all, I appreciate you guys. We've known each other for a long time, and I have a ton of respect for what you guys have done in business, and even more respect for who you guys are as people. So, you guys have amazing values, and couldn't be better leaders for the blue collar millionaire community. So excited to be here, man. And dude, I'm a blue collar kid from Cleveland, Ohio, right? My dad was a policeman. My mom was like a teacher, stay at home mom, and come from that type of mindset. So it's like, dude, you got to work hard, you got to go to school, you got to get good grades, get a good job. And but my dad had like a security business, so we had kind of like a security personnel type of a business that would, I don't have personnel security at a hospital or a factory or a foundry or an apartment complex. And he made more money in his part-time business than he did in his full-time police job. Wow. And so that was kind of like the seed that was planted of like, I know how we pay for things, right? It's not from the police job, it's from this business. Yeah. And why don't you just go full-time in that? And he was like, well, we got health insurance, right? And we got this and that, and job security and all this other nonsense. And but that was like the entrepreneurial bug kind of hit me, and I was like, I want to be an entrepreneur, but I didn't know what industry. He had dealt with like just a huge pain in the ass employees and stuff, and all minimum wage employees showing up late, not showing up at all, no call, no shows. And I was like, I don't want that business. I need to find another one. And real estate was going crazy when I was going through college. So like 03 to 07, market's booming and everybody's like, get involved in real estate. And so I started out in the trades. I had like a painting company in college and would run some crews of a bunch of my college buddies and just paint houses and do some general landscaping and exterior kind of work for a couple years. Interned for a big home builder between my junior and senior year, and then decided I'd move out to New York City. So I'm from Cleveland, Ohio originally, moved out to New York. My brother was living out there, and so that's why I went out there, got a real estate license, and then parked my license with a boutique brokerage that did commercial real estate. And they wouldn't give me any of the big deals, but they gave me like some side alley kind of listings for like a retail space or an office space. And I had one that was 400 square feet in Greenwich Village. And we signed a lease after 8 months of like marketing and negotiations for $10,000 a month on a 400 square foot space, 4% annual increases, 12-year lease term. And you start doing the math, you're like, holy shit, dude. Like, I need to be owning real estate, not brokering it. Yeah. And so that's what moved me down to Charleston. I was like, I want to become an investor. I moved down to Charleston and started wholesaling. Right? Got involved in the single family side of things because I thought I needed to stockpile a bunch of my own cash in order to get involved in real estate. And which isn't the case, by the way, but that's all that I knew. And so I started wholesaling and I started flipping and I started meeting people with some money, and they became private money investors. And we figured out equity splits. If I bought the property and did all the work and they put up the money, what did the split look like if we held it, if we flipped it, and all that kind of stuff. So, and that's how the journey kind of started, right? And then I was pretty shitty at that for a few years, and then finally caught wind of getting by joining masterminds and getting in groups like what you guys are putting together. In 2015, 2016, found like an upswing of finally getting things figured out a little bit, and at least had a sounding board of people that I could throw ideas off of, and gave me some good insights. And that helped me, just have these quantum leaps forward in business by having that sounding board, because it's lonely being an entrepreneur. And then after about 9-10 years, I was an overnight success. Made it all happen.
Just only 9-10 years overnight, right?
Yeah, dude. Hey.
I love that post you had about all the things they don't see. Mm-hmm. It's so true. Everybody thinks it's all sunshine and roses at the top.
Yeah, man. Dude, still, right? It's just varying levels. There's varying levels of success. There's varying levels of problems that come with that success. And dude, I have a joint venture partner who completely dropped the ball on thousands of doors that I'm partnered with, and I'm the financial guy. So everybody's looking at me from, hey, we'll chase him down for money. We'll chase him down. It's my equity investors. It's my name, my signature on the loan docs. It's me who has to then front more money, millions of dollars more money, in order to then take over operations, step in, handle asset management, and get some of these projects moved. So it's been, last year was actually a pretty stressful year for me from an operation standpoint, because not everybody does what they say that they're going to do, unfortunately. And I was focused on some other stuff and gave them enough of a leash to hang themselves, and almost me too. But we got out of a lot of it. But it's just, to realize, like, I can't post about that stuff on social media. I can't go live about it on Facebook, because I had investors in those deals. I had, if anybody smelled the blood in the streets last year when I was selling those projects, they would have come in and, undercut their offers and really could have taken me down. So it's not always that you're not trying to share the downside of things. Right. Sometimes you just can't, because it would adversely affect my investors, who I have a fiduciary duty for. But now I can talk about it, and I can talk about, hey, it's not all sunshine and roses. And you see the highlight reels on social media. You don't see the blooper reels behind the scenes.
That's right. I think it's very important to paint the context. I know, what year was it? I believe you said you started making some money. You then started getting some things repossessed because you put it in cash flowing assets. And then now, I know you've been selling some stuff off, but you hit like that 4,000 unit mark. And even at this level, you still have years like you just had, to where it gets super stressful. Very, very much success has taken place, but you still have those elements, and you never get away from that. So kind of tell us that low moment, and then give us that update of where you are. I know I kind of did a spoiler alert there, but yeah, give us that context.
Yeah. Well, 2009, I bought my first property and got into real estate. Had about 10 properties by 2012, but I chased some shiny objects. Like, dude, we all know there's a lot of shiny. You've seen the e-commerce stores shiny objects. You've seen crypto shiny objects. You've seen real estate as a shiny object for a lot of people. You've seen flipping businesses as a shiny object. Like, dude, there's a lot of shiny objects out there. There's a lot of ways where, dude, there's even groups where people are flipping baseball cards. There's groups where people are like, there's a lot of different ways to make money. And I chased some shiny objects, and I got away from real estate for a couple of years, 2011, 2012. And I sold those 10 properties, and I wasn't rich from those 10 properties, but I was financially free. I had enough residual income that covered all my business expenses, covered all my personal expenses, and put a couple bucks in my pocket, $1,000 a month beyond my living expenses. And I was 25 years old, and I was like, dude, I got this figured out. Let me go buy the Mercedes. Let me go and join the private clubs. Let me go and take some fancy vacations. And it got to a point where I pursued these other business ventures, and I wasn't a good steward of capital back then. I never had anything like repossessed or taken away, but dude, there were some very skinny days where I had, I was paying for food with like, I'd go and buy a foot-long sub for lunch, right? And get as many of the free toppings as I could from Subway. And I'd eat half at lunch, half at dinner, and then I wouldn't eat again for the next day, right? Like, I make a joke. Now that's cool. Now it's called intermittent fasting. Back then it was just being broke. I was just broke, right? Like, a little bit different. And so that was like one of those things that I had to go through in order to become a good steward of capital, in order to really respect money, right? Like, I had 25 grand of credit card debt, 80 bucks in my bank account. I had to borrow money to make the minimum payments on my credit card from my dad, right? Because it was wildly embarrassing. And I paid him back, right? Thankfully, came up to a point where I renovated their entire bathroom and their master suite in their house and all this stuff and made it really nice, and paid him back for that. But it was like, dude, Dad, I'm going to figure this out. And my dad's telling me, go get a job, go get a job, go get a job. Right. I'm like, no, I'm going to figure it out. I was like, what? Like the other 97%? Like I'm part of the 3%. He goes, yeah, like the other 97% of freaking society that has jobs. Go get a job too. Right? Like, busted my balls about it. And I was like, no, I'm part of the 3%. I'm going to figure this out. By the way, can I borrow $1,500 to make a minimum payment on my credit card, or $700 or whatever it was? Yeah. And dude, it sucked. It was a really shitty position. And then I was like, you know what? I had it figured out with real estate. Let me stop chasing these other business ventures, these other shiny objects. It was a network marketing company that I was like pursuing, and logically it made a lot of sense. Financially, it didn't, and but I drank the juice, and I got a lot of personal development out of it. A lot of the things that I teach today have a spin from that company, just on the real estate side of things, because the fundamentals were there. It just wasn't the right vehicle. If we're both racing down the street and you're in a Ferrari and I'm in a Ford Pinto, you're going to win.
Right.
It doesn't matter how good of a pilot you are, a driver you are. You got a better vehicle than I do.
Right.
And but once you're in the same vehicle, then the driver does, right? The jockey does play a part in who wins the race. So, but finding the right vehicle, and I realized when I was totally broke in August of 2012, crying on my bed because I was like, I thought I had this figured out 2 years ago, and now I'm totally destitute. The only property I still had was my home, my primary residence, and I had to sell it. And I moved back in with my parents at the age of 27 years old. But real estate saved my ass. I had $50,000 of equity in that property, and I was able to then pull that out of my home, pay down my credit card debt, pay back some other unsecured debts that I had. That I owed to other people, bought a ring for my girlfriend, who's now my wife. She didn't know how broke I was at the time, right? And then I got back into real estate. And there were people from that business that are like, listen, dude, the reason we got into this business so we can make money to then park into real estate, because that's what we understand that's where a lot of wealth is built. And can we partner up with you? And so I was able to raise some money from some people, created a partnership with them, and essentially went to work playing Monopoly. And I think, you guys kind of alluded to this, like there's different levels and you're always going through those different levels, right? Like Mark Evans, a mentor of all of us, talks about checkpoints on the journey. And I think that's such a true statement. We always think, hey, if I can get to 100 doors, like I'm set. If I can get, now it's not like once I got to 100 doors, I was like, now I need to get to 100 good doors, right? Not the war zone doors.
Right.
And then I got to 100 good doors. And then I was like, well, now I need to get to 1,000 doors. And that I obsessed over that, dude. Like my password for my logins for everything was $100 million portfolio, 100 million. And then I got to I got to like 85, and then I blew past it and got to like 200, 225 very quickly, because this compound effect sets in. And that's the key. The key is the momentum, right? Getting the forces working under the surface of learning the skill sets, doing the activities, focus on the revenue generating activities. And if you're focused on those, dude, you just pick your head up in 3 to 5 years and you're like, wow, like this thing grew a lot more than I ever thought. One of the things that we always talk about in our mastermind, Legacy Family, is we all overestimate what we can accomplish in 12 months. All of us do. Like when I do my goals in between Christmas and New Year's every year, I always overshoot what I actually accomplish. But I grossly underestimate when I look at my 5-year goals. I was like, dude, we blew past that in 2.5 years, like 3 years. Like, why didn't I push that a little bit higher? So you will overestimate what you can accomplish in 12 months, but you'll grossly underestimate what you can do in 3 to 5 years if you put your head down and you focus on one way to build wealth.
I agree with that. One thing I've been super impressed. I've been, I think it's 2 years this November in your mastermind. That's really what got my start in real estate. And it was another local team here in my market that produced your or shared your link for your commercial empire, the educational part. So anyway, long story short, I got into your mastermind and I noticed how much you focus on self-development. And you've already been talking about the self-development, staying focused. How much does that play into the masterminds that you get involved in, and how that's pushed you from your single family, just being a realtor, getting into the single family, and now having such massive success into your multifamily?
Yeah, man, dude, I think mindset's 80% of it. I think it's 80% of the game. 20% is showing up, right? Like being there, like having the balls in order to show up, and then 20% is like the activities, Yeah. But having the right mindset, and understanding, dude, it takes a lot more fuel to get a plane off the ground than it does to sustain flight, and realizing that early on in the journey in any new business venture that you're launching. Dude, I'm going to go through getting kicked in the nuts over and over and over and over and over again before I actually have success, right? But all those kicked in the nuts is going to make me stronger, going to make me tougher, going to be learning experiences. And I'm not going to make the same mistakes later as I did early on. And so when you understand that you're better, you're more efficient, you're more effective, if you can get the plane off the ground, once you get up here, dude, it's easy to do business, right? Because I've already been, and it's more profitable to do business, and it's faster to do deals, and you have the resources and the connections and the relationship capital, right, that we always talk about. If I don't have the mindset, dude, that's why everybody quits and nobody gets ahead, is because nobody gives it 3 to 5 years of dedication to become an expert at any one thing, right? Because they all don't have success in the first 12 to 24 months, and they jump ship to something new. And it takes 10,000 hours to become an expert at something. If you don't know that, that's a scientific proven fact. It takes there's multiple books about it. 10,000 hours. Outliers. 10,000 hours, 40 hours a week, 50 weeks a year is 2,000. So it takes 5 years. If you're psychos like us, maybe you spend 60 hours and you can do it in 3 years, right? 60 hours a week. And so that's a scientific fact. And so once you know that, right? I didn't know that early on. And now it makes sense when I look at people who jump from job to job or business to business every 1 to 3 years. They never become an expert at any one thing. And they are always going through the difficult part of the business. It's not until, dude, year 1's planting seeds, year 2's cultivating those seeds, year 3 is the harvest, year 4 and beyond is the consumption phase. Right. And so if you are always quitting in year 2 or year 3, you're never getting to the harvest. You're never getting to the consumption of those goods. And so it's way easier and more profitable to own a business in year 4, year 5, year 6, year 7, and all that success compounds. So like, if you don't know that, if you don't have the mindset to expect that, then you're going to keep on jumping. And then the other thing that I would say is the size, right? Like the size of your success is wholly determined by the size of your thinking. I don't give a shit if you have a GED or a PhD. I don't give a shit what your race, creed, color, ethnicity, gender, sexual orientation. I don't care about any of that stuff, dude. None of it plays a part in the size of your success. The size of your success is directly correlated to the size of your thinking. There are people no smarter than any of us who have gone straight to the top because they just didn't give a shit, man. They were not scared to roll the fucking dice, right? And then there's other people who have, doctorate degrees from Ivy League schools who are friggin' sissies sitting in somebody else's cubicle, helping somebody else get rich because they don't have the balls to go in and build a business for themselves. What's the difference? It's not education. It's not, social and economic situation. It's based on having the ability, having the size and the willingness to think big.
God, I'm ready to run through a wall, man. Let's go.
I mean, just you thinking about getting to 4,000 units, getting out of single family, it's been huge for you. When I talk to blue collar guys, and I always tell them I don't do houses, they're like, "What? You don't do?" I said, "I only do big jobs."
Yeah.
And they give me a bunch of reasons. They put obstacles in front of themselves. Oh, I heard they don't pay. Oh, I heard they're a pain in the ass. I heard there's a lot of competition. I said, none of it's true. It's actually more competition on those shitty like houses that you do for $200 than on the ones for 4,000. I'm the only guy over here. They're trying to get 3 bids, and managers always tell me I can't get enough bids. But go ask some homeowner to get 3 bids on his landscaping. He'll have 12 in his mailbox at the end of the day.
Yep.
But people just create all these things. Before I met you, Tim, you had a big influence on social media because I was looking to get my cash into real estate. When I was younger, I had like 2, 3, 4 family type properties. And I was looking to buy one here. It was like $2 million and it was 18 units, which is a really good deal back then. This is like 2017. But that was like my max in my head. Like, I could do 20 units. I have to put 500,000 down. But when I started watching your stuff, I was like, yeah, I need to be around people who do hundreds of units and then team up with them. And it's much more likely that I get involved in those deals. But I was doing the same thing I tell those guys not to do. I was giving myself all kinds of reasons. I don't know anyone. I don't know if I'll qualify, all these other things. And it was a bunch of nonsense.
Dude, all of it's a story in our head. All of it is. Like everything, like there's no bottleneck greater than us in our own way. We are always the bottleneck in our own growth and our own business acceleration and pushing things forward. It's always in our own head, dude. If you get out of your own way, and like one of the things that I do is I just look at the best upside potential and the worst downside, risk, right? And the reality is, dude, we're not operating on brains. We're not, doing neurosurgery. There's no life or death stress or downside that could happen. You're not going to die from doing a shitty deal, right? Worst case scenario, you do a big shitty deal and it goes south and you don't have the capacity to figure it out and you claim bankruptcy. If that's the worst case, at least there's a fucking floor, right? At least you can't go below zero. But what's the upside? Limitless income potential. Limitless. Dude, digging a friggin' trench around your family, a financial fortress that you can build around your family that nothing can ever break through, being able to set up generations to come of legacy wealth, like that is worth going to zero and having a shitty credit score for 7 years in my book. You know what I mean?
I agree.
And so obviously none of us want to, and we would never be negligent. We would never be stupid with what we're doing, right? But the reality is, if that's worst case scenario, and there's a lot of shit that needs to go wrong in order for that to go south, right? It's like, dude, well, first of all, the bank has to lose money. Well, you have to lose money on the deal. The bank has to lose money on the deal. They have to find some sort of way to pierce the corporate veil to get to you personally. You have to have your assets somewhere that's openly available. Like there's a lot of, there's court, all this, there's a lot of stuff that needs to go wrong in order to go to zero. You know what I mean? And there's a lot of things that you can put stop holds in place in order to not have that happen. And so I'm not worried about that. Dude, I'm focused on limitless income potential. And if I make more money, then I can pay for attorneys to handle all the other shit like asset protection and dealing with lawsuits and dealing with all the other downside potential risks that we create in our head.
I love that idea of like you're not going to die from this by going all in. You can always go back to your job. You can always go back to do. When I had this mentor I met here in 2016, we were going over my numbers and I was telling him one day, he was like, why are your eyes all red? I said, I was up till like 4:30 in the morning. I used to wear that as a badge of honor. I thought it was going to be cool to tell him. He goes, what? And then I remember him telling me, you're not doing this right if you're doing that. He's like, you think you're making a lot of money, but he's like, you want to make $1 million or more a year. You need better people and you need to be done at 6 o'clock, not 1 a.m. And he says, but you can try it. And if it doesn't work out, you can always go back to staying up at 4 a.m, making $500,000 a year. Nobody's going to stop you. But I was thinking like, if that's the worst thing, I'm already doing it.
Yeah.
And I listened to him. I hired better people. I started doing this. And then all of a sudden, like you can make so much more money. And one thing you used to say is a lot of times people, they think to go from 500 grand to $1 million, let's just say in gross sales, they have to do twice as much. That's what your brain thinks. Well, I have to do everything twice as much, but it doesn't work that way. You need to ask yourself different questions. Who's going to help me do it? What's an easier way to do it? How is that possible? And you're probably going to do less work, not more work to get there.
Well, and to that point, it's like, that's like 500,000 to $1 million for a lot of people. That's a big number. But the reality is, it's not a big enough number to start asking yourself better questions, right? Because it's like, oh, well, it's 500 million. I'll just do twice of what I'm already doing. And that's the easy answer. But what if you were like, how do I go from 500,000 to 5 million or 500,000 to 15 million? You can't possibly say, well, I got to do 10 times or I have to do 30 times as much work. You're like, I don't have 30 times the number of hours in the day, right? Because I'm already up until 4 o'clock in the morning. So when you really push the goal out And you're like, then you realize I can't just possibly do more. Now I have to put a different business together. I have to build my business differently. I have to hire certain people to handle different elements of it, because there's no way that Kevin or Chris or Tim can do this on our own, right? It's got to be done with systems. It's got to be done with processes. It's got to be done with people. And you think about, dude, how does Jeff Bezos do it? How does Elon Musk do it? They have the same 24 hours in a day that we have. How are these guys out earning us? Well, they have systems, they have teams, they have processes in place in order to do that. And again, dude, the bigger the business is, the easier it is to make money, because now there's redundancies. You know, like I was thinking about this this morning on a drive over, and I have a contractor who's kind of bothering me right now, and I'm looking to hire a maintenance, and I was like going to hire a maintenance guy, so that way I have somebody else on site. And I was like, you know what? Then I'm relying on that maintenance guy too. What if I hire 2 maintenance guys? Now there's redundancies on site. So if one person quits or doesn't show up or doesn't do their job, then I can move them out, but I still have a backup there as well, right? You can't do that if you're thinking small. If you can only thinking, I need to hire this one role and that's the only role that I can afford, well, guess there's actually more risk to that than hiring 2 people in that role or 3 people in that role, because now you have redundancies and now you're building a real business and a real system, and you know, a real company that is not reliant upon any one person.
I love that. Yeah, hiring. Did you have to make enough money and gross enough money to do that? If you have a company that grosses 300,000, you can't like hire 2 people to do stuff. That's why you got to get to bigger numbers. But that was a game changer. Actually, at one of your masterminds, Fatty said that. Why don't you hire 2 when we were talking about sales guys? And I did. And the one that I thought was going to work out, he flaked on me, and the other guy just took off. Mm-hmm. It was like I was teaching him at the same time too. So it wasn't doubling my time. But I felt really good. Like before, he was stressing me out with every little thing. You start relying on one person, it's bad.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, especially with sales roles, man, and like revenue generating roles. Dude, their job is to go and generate revenue. If you're making money, it solves all other problems, right? Like you can take care of anything. Like that's the easiest one to overhire for, is like a sales type of a role. And a quick, Chris, before you comment, man, something that Kevin said that I think is an integral part of pivoting mindset, for me at least, and I've seen it in a lot of other people, is even if you're doing $300,000, how do I hire somebody and pay him 60 G's a year, right? Like it's a big chunk of my money. The reality is it's not 60 grand a year, it's $5,000 a month. Yeah. And if they suck at their job over the course of 60 days, you're going to know, and you didn't risk $60,000, you risked 10 grand. And I promise you, it's worth the risk of spending $10,000 to see how much this person can open you up to generate way more revenue. That was a key portion of the first mastermind I ever went to. Dude, I made 130 grand in 2014. First time I ever made 6 figures. Hired somebody and I joined a mastermind, those 2 things. And by hiring somebody and joining a mastermind allowed me to just punch through every additional hurdle that I faced at every additional level. And hiring that person and understanding leveraging other people's time. We always hear about money, leveraging OPT, other people's time. Dude, that tripled my income in the next 10 months of 2015. I made 400 grand from doing those 2 things that I attribute all $400,000 of that to. So it's changing your mindset. But I was like, I can't hire somebody for 40 grand a year if I only made $130,000. That's like, dude, that's a third of my income, you know? Yeah. And they're like, dude, it's not that, it's $3,500 a month. Can you risk that? I was like, yeah, I guess I could for 2 months. And then, you know, whatever. So anyways, I think that's a really important mindset piece for people to dial in and realize you're not taking on a $130,000 salary by hiring an attorney. You're taking on a $10,000 a month salary, and let's see how much it opens you up, you know? And so it's like, thinking about it from that framework is going to give you, I think, a little bit more balls in order to go out and start building the team. But
I agree. I agree 100%. So yeah, and you just said it, and that's what I was going to say. I've heard you say several times, revenue solves all problems. And I definitely have experienced that from my startup phase to the point I'm at now, because It takes stress away. It allows you to act quicker on bigger decisions, on throwing money towards problems. If something bad happens, I can replace it. If we get, the pipeline just gets jammed up, I can hire another person. And when you think of it in the level that you were just mentioning, you're not doing it all 1 year at one time. It's spread out over the year. That money that you're spending kind of breaks down those hurdles that we set up. And it goes back to what you said. Hey, it's you against you in the sense of we are our biggest hurdle, and it's because we don't think big enough. Huge. So how did you got a rock star team? I mean, even down when it comes to you doing your mastermind events and setting those up. They are the biggest and best events that I've ever been a part of. I mean, you just lead with a ton of value. I honestly don't know how you even make money from them. You may not make money from them. You may have.
We don't make much.
Yeah. So I think probably your long-term play is there's so much opportunity in relationship capital.
Right.
But how did you get this rock star team built up? Because this is probably the biggest complaint from entrepreneurs is I can't find good help.
Yeah, man. Well, here's the thing. It's because you're trying to pay as little as possible. And when you pay as little as possible, and that's not actually, that's a big component. But the bigger issue is like, you're not painting the vision, right? You're not selling the vision of where you're going. But combined with those two things, yeah, hell no, you're not going to attract anybody who has a long-term mindset. You're not going to attract anybody who's growth-oriented. You're not going to attract anybody who wants to grow with the organization or be your COO one day if you're not painting the vision and you're too friggin' cheap. So the reality is, quality people cost money. They're not dumb. So they're not going to go and take, unless the vision's there, unless the long-term value's there. So first thing is understand people are assets. Okay? People on your team are assets. If write these three things down, you screen them, you train them, and you measure their performance. If you screen them, you train them, you measure their performance, they should be an asset to your team. And what I mean by that is, what do assets do? They don't cost you money, they make a return on your investment. I'll give you an example. Hired an attorney. This is where the $130,000 attorney came from. Hired an attorney in December of this year. Had an issue with a lender that was busting my balls about a prepayment penalty. And, they said that they sent us a notice and this and that and all these other things. And it was a big deal. It was a big project, multi-million-dollar, like tens of millions of dollars loan. And the prepayment penalty was $3.3 million on this thing. Okay. And we thought it was going to be 1.5. But they're like, no, well, this and that. We sent this notice back then, and technically, it wasn't like in default, but it was like it triggered some sort of clause in the loan because the property needed some additional renovations. And then when we decided to sell it, the prepayment penalty was calculated based on, last year when the interest rate was still low. And as interest rates rise, the prepayment penalty comes down because essentially the bank can take their money at a 4% that they have a loan with me at. They can go put it in a 10-year treasury at 5% and make more money if it's not. So like it actually incentivizes you. It reduces the prepayment penalty, if that makes sense at all. But let me come full circle. That attorney who I pay $130,000 a year to, I justified that because dude, we put private placement memorandums together for all the different deals that we do. And if we did 6-7 deals a year, that's like $15,000 per private placement memorandum in order to be able to go out and raise money. So that's like $100,000 right there. If I just had to do that, it pretty much breaks even. This dude comes in, finds some language in the loan docs, gets on a conference call with the lender. And this is like a big lender who has teams of attorneys for decades and decades. And the way that it reads and the way that he positioned it spooked them enough where they changed the prepayment penalty date, recalculated it, saved me $1.8 million in prepayment penalties. So this dude paid for his own salary for the next 15 years with 1 week of work. And when you realize that you have an asset on your team who's either going to save you money or make you money, you're not afraid to go out and build a team. And you're not afraid to pay a big salary, a 6-figure salary for somebody who can do that. And I think that's a lesson learned in, especially with sales salespeople. Salespeople are very, very easy because they're generating revenue, and there's a direct correlation of ROI on what you're paying them to how much revenue that they're generating. When you get into assistants, right, and you get into an executive assistant or somebody who is more of a support staff, that's a little bit harder to quantify, but you have to quantify it by how much time are they allowing you to open up to go and generate more revenue, or how much time are they allowing your team to open up to go and generate more revenue. And you realize that paying somebody 50, 60 grand a year in a support role allows you to go and generate $400,000, $500,000 a year or millions. That's a good investment, you know? So that's a big piece. But going back to understanding ROI, now you're not as cheap to pay for somebody. And then the other thing was painting the vision. And that, I think that's probably one of those skill sets that I didn't realize I had early on. But I attract good people because I'm like, listen, I'm hiring you not for this role, but for the next 2 roles, right? Here's where the company's going. I want you to have your own team of people that report to you in the next 3 to 5 years. And by the way, I believe in abundance. There's plenty of wealth to go around for all of us. And I can point to multiple people on my team who have vested their way into equity in ownership in all of our properties. My COO, my chief investment officer, who was my business attorney, my acquisitions director, and now we have a traveling asset manager that gets equity in deals. And now we have a whole bunch of other people who get profit share or some sort of equity, and I can show a track record for that. I talked about it early on, and these guys believed me. And then when I was able to do that, I gave them that equity. And now I can point to multiple people on my team who have vested into equity and ownership in all of our properties because they were committed, they were loyal, they always did more than what they got paid for in order to make an investment in their future. And I'm having this conversation with a new hire, and I'm letting them know that the vaults are open, right? Yeah. All they have to do is prove to me that they're worthy of earning, investing their way into equity. That's it. And if they're willing to do that and they have a long-term vision over the next 3, 5, 7 years, which isn't that fucking hard, dude. They were working as a dog in their last business for the past 12 years, you know? So to get them to come over here and dedicate 5 years to 7 years of their life to a new opportunity that they can actually start building some wealth in as well, dude, it gets them bought into a long-term vision. It gets them bought in from an ownership mentality and an ownership mindset. And I'm telling them, I expect you to do more than you get paid for to make an investment in your future. And if you do, you will be compensated for it. And guess what? They all do that. Like, not all of them, but like majority of them do, because we know how to set a proper expectation at the interview phase. And we train them properly, and we measure their performance. We get them focused on those revenue generating activities. And we you know, if they're ever off course, we get them narrowed back in on that. So that way we can help them achieve at the highest level. So, dude, I think it all comes down to understanding people are an investment and create a return on investment, or they're an asset, they create a return on investment, and painting that long-term vision and acting on it, you know?
That's freaking huge.
I think that's great. So many people ask us in this group about hiring people, and I can't get any good guys. I don't know, Chris, people message me all the time, but I always think maybe your offer sucks. You know, maybe maybe you got a C- company and you're looking for an A player. You're not going to get them.
Yeah.
You're trying
you gotta be the people that you want to attract.
To save on payroll taxes, or you're trying not to give them any benefits or anything, or they don't know if they're going to be working in 3 weeks. Are you going to have enough work? I mean, you're going to attract the worst of the worst doing that.
Yeah.
You have to sell them on that vision. Reverse engineer for yourself. If you're 40 and maybe you were 22 at one point, what would you have wanted when you were that person's age to show up and kick ass for your company?
100%.
Everybody knows the answer to that. And a lot of times we're not giving that to them. We're like, we're not giving them much of an offer. You can't expect much. I made this mistake for like the first 15 years.
Totally. And I think we all do. I think we're all like, you know what? Let's try to save money. We'll 1099 instead of paying employment taxes. Hey, let's try to what's the other thing? You know, not have a 401k or have health insurance or have like all these other benefits. Dude, who are you going to attract? You know, like, you think about this. You're telling me that you want a business, a real business, but you're treating it like some friggin' kindergarten hobby bullshit. Like, dude, what do it's incongruent. It's not matching up of what you say you want and how you're actually acting. And guess
Goes
what?
back to
People
that.
see that as soon as you sit down in an interview and you talk big, but you don't offer all these, dude. This guy's full of garbage. Right? The kids over here.
Yeah.
It's dude. You have to be congruent. I just got tagged in a post where I called somebody out on that at a mastermind a couple months ago, and I was like, dude, you want a kid business or you want a real business? Well, guess what, dude? Man up. And he went and bought a truck and he wrapped it and made it a write-off. He's got this van now with his logo on the side of it. It's like a real business, and he's offering benefits to his employees and he's going and growing. And guess what? He's making more money because he's a real business. He's attracting A players because he's a real business. And it's an integral part of your growth.
Yeah,
Man.
talking about the vehicles, Chris, you have great vehicles. I wrap my vehicles, but I didn't do that early on. There's a lot of guys who don't want to get workers' comp. They want to get like a secondhand truck with no wrap with magnet signs, or they got it in their personal name so they don't have to pay commercial insurance. They got all these games they play. The guy who's working for you notices all of this, because then I know your equipment doesn't really work. You never have. Anybody who's good is going to be looking to lead. They're not going to tell you, but they're on their phone looking for opportunities while they're in your truck. I know they are. You have to make it so they're like, wow, this guy, he has so much work. And that's like when I used to send guys on the road, I always put them in really nice hotels, give them a per diem for meals. It's like, they were like, this is incredible. I want to make it so I totally stand out from where you were working before. You don't have nice trucks, new blowers, new ladders, new everything, not this crap old stuff. I've done that.
Dude, take them to Top Golf, right? Like do like some events that's actually fun where you can build some camaraderie, and realize like, dude, how many dollars are you stepping over because you're worried about dimes? Like I had a plumber that came over to my house over the holidays, up in Ohio. I'm only up there 2 months a year. So I get back over the summertime and like issues with some hot water tank or HVAC or whatever it was. And so I call this guy over. He's like, dude, I'm out 2 weeks. I'm like, all right, well, come on over. Let's get you on the schedule. I'll pay a premium, whatever it looks like. And he's like, oh man, it's just so hard to find guys, so hard to find people. And I was like, well, I mean, what do you offer? He's like, dude, I'm trying to pay him $30 an hour. I'll pay him $30. I was like, well, what do you bill at? He goes, $400. I was like, why don't you pay him $100 an hour? Why don't you pay, like, you'll attract some pretty badass, like you start paying $150, $200, $250 an hour, and you keep a spread of $150 an hour on somebody else's full-time business. Dude, that's 40 hours a week times $150 an hour. What is that? $6,000 a week that you're making on somebody else, but you're too cheap in order to pay them more money. It's like, dude, you're missing the ROI. You're missing the big picture. And could you imagine how big of a rock star they would be if you're paying them $150 an hour?
Absolutely.
Oh, it's like, how many of those people, like, you're too cheap. It's not that he's charging and he's getting his price and he's got too much business. It's like you're stepping over dollars because you're worried about dimes.
Here's what I love what you're talking about. Everything goes back to us. Every single problem in our life comes back to us. And when we start taking full responsibility for all of the problems, we start analyzing, what are we doing? What are we doing wrong? What can we do better? So we've talked about OPT, but let's talk about other people's money, because you're really good at this. I love your take on social media. I love your take on making sure you're prepared before you need it. You got a little quote that I won't do a spoiler on. So talk to us about how you leverage other people's money and how you attract that.
Yeah, man. So I'm a big believer. Honesty is the best policy, right? And I just talk about what we got going on. Like, you heard me talking about losing money and getting kicked in the nuts on real estate deals. Guess what? Some people wouldn't talk about those because they think it paints them in a bad light. Truly, there's people who are probably watching this who are like, dude, this guy's not just bullshitting me. And I actually, he's more trustworthy because he talks about his bad deals and his good deals. It's like, just be honest. Honesty is always the best policy. Hey, what do we tell this contractor because their bid's too high? We tell them it's too high, and we tell them we have other bids but we want to use them. Can they come down on price? It's not like we're trying to beat them up. Like, we have an economic decision that we have to do and whatever, so it's like, honesty is always the best policy. And I think that's definitely the case with investors, 100% the case with investors too. What you guys are doing is amazing because you're out there understanding the value in sharing what you're doing and utilizing social media, which is like the best marketing medium of anything this generation's ever seen, of anything the world's ever seen. It is the 8th wonder of the world if you use it properly, not to consume, but to create. If you are creating and educating and inspiring and talking about what you're doing, it builds trust and it builds credibility in what you're doing. So now people are watching and they see you doing that. You see you doing the right thing or educating. So it allows them to think, oh, this guy really knows what they're doing, right? They're talking about business. They're talking about all this stuff. And the more honest you are and the more, talk about the goods and the bads and everything that comes with it, the more trustworthy you are. Those are the 2 things you need. You need respect and you need trust if you want influence. And influence is how you raise money, right? By having influence, by having trust and respect. So you need to always be dialing in and working on your trust and working on your influence, or your trust and respect that you have with your community. And again, it's by educating and it's by inspiring. By educating, you build trust or respect. By inspiring, you build trust. And you do those couple of things on social media, and there's going to be people in your community that look at you and they're like, hey, this guy knows what he's doing. I like him. I've had so many people who are like, hey, man, I just sold my business. I'm sitting at about $2 million and I want to deploy, 500 to $1 million with you. I was like, dude, we've never talked before. He goes, no, but I've been following you for 3 or 4 years. Yes. You're a good guy. I see you with your family. I love how you talk through these deals. And I really believe in your vision and what you got going on. And I see you're not just a flash in the pan and you're doing this, long-term and blah, blah, blah. And so it's like, dude, all because people are watching. They're watching all the time. You never know. We live in a very voyeurism type of a society where they're watching, and maybe they're not liking, maybe they're not commenting, but they are watching. And it's up to us to realize that's not an urgent activity, but it's an important activity to share what you're doing all the time. And so, dude, I think that's one of the most important things is not being a secret agent and just always telling people what you got going on and educating them on that.
Tim, you've done the best at that. I'll tell you my experience and how I invested in you so people can see it. Because a lot of people in here are looking to buy businesses. They have to raise money. And I always use your quote of, you have to dig the well before you're thirsty. Mm-hmm. If you want it in 6 months, you need to start today.
Yes.
So what happened I was following you, Tim. I liked your videos. I liked your content. I started to know, like, and trust you way before I met you. Mm-hmm. And we did a phone call. I was ready to give you money if you need. I actually think we did a phone call for your charity, and I would have given you $100,000. I wanted to get in a deal, and I could sense it from you. You didn't even need it, right? That made me more confident. Mm-hmm. So then you were like, well, I don't need anything, but if something comes up, I'll let you know. Then I asked you again. You were like, well, if something comes up. And then when I got in your mastermind, of course, I knew you, but it was really the stuff before. And then one day, Friday called me, and he said, hey, we need 100 on this Lafayette deal. I wired it to him like in 3 hours. Mm-hmm. That was built on what was already happening over 6 months. People try to get deals, and then we've all gotten those messages where somebody's just messaging you like you never even heard of them. Like, I'm going to write you a check for $100,000. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Like, people who have $100,000 or more, $1 million, they need to know, like, and trust someone, but you can do that on social media. Probably people watching this feel like they know, like, and trust Chris and I, but they've never met us because we're just being ourselves. So everybody should be doing that. Social media is super powerful. And this whole thing of what we're doing, a lot of it, Tim, it's really, I'd say 85% of it is based off you and Mark.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
A huge part of it. I was I see what he's doing. This is smart. I could do this. But then I gave myself bottlenecks. I don't like being on camera. I don't like my voice. I'm looking old. All this other nonsense. Nobody gives a shit.
Dude, nobody cares.
Nobody cares about your voice.
Nobody cares.
They care about what you're saying.
Yeah.
I really thought people cared about things that make no sense.
Yeah, and there's a sense of, you judge a book by its cover, and so there's a little bit of that don't be a slob, right? Like if just present yourself as professional, and like you do a couple of those things, it overcomes that immediately. And now they're following you because you're a good, genuine person. They see past any of that other stuff. So you don't have to worry about any of that stuff. It's all stuff that's, again, bottlenecks in our own heads. But I think
Sean Whalen said it best. Like, people aren't afraid to fail going maybe on social media. They're afraid to be judged, and you're going to be judged. I got a couple dumb messages. One friend of mine, like, what are you, a guru now? I mean, like, if that's the worst that happens, there's always, or in some of these gutter groups, they're like, who are you, man? What do you know about gutters? I don't know. A little something.
I don't know.
I might know something.
I love how they throw around guru like it's a bad thing. If you look up the definition of guru, you should be honored to be called a guru. Like I think it's like a spiritual and business advisor and mentor, and somebody who leads others and inspires others and educates others so that way they don't make the same mistake. Dude, it's like the ultimate leader. It's an amazing compliment to be called a guru. So like I'm fine with it. I really don't care. And if you worry about, like, dude, there's just too many people who care what other people think. Like, who gives a shit?
It doesn't matter.
Their judgment on you is not a judgment of you. It's a reflection of themselves, right? It's not about you at all. It's about their insecurities that they're trying to pull you down, right? Because what you're doing makes them feel so insecure about what they're not doing that they're trying to yank you down to their level, so that way misery loves company. And so they don't have to see you having success and wanting to do more, be more, have more, give more in your life, because that turns the mirror in on themselves, and they start reflecting on themselves and what they're not doing, and what they're not accomplishing, and who they're not inspiring, and who they're not educating, and that they're not doing more with their life. And that makes people feel very, very uncomfortable. And so then they try to yank you down, dude. And guess what, man? Moving in the opposite direction. That's the key to success, right? When the market's down, that's when you buy. You go in the opposite direction, right? The seed that sprouts from the ground, what is it doing? It's pushing away from gravity. It's moving in the opposite direction. If people are trying to pull you down, man, I'm going as far in the other way that I possibly can.
Man, so tell us about the programs you got going on. You got Legacy Family going on. You got Commercial Empire. I want to know about those so that we can drop links down in the comments and people can plug into the passion and the self-development and the skill sets that you offer, because it's like Kevin said, we've taken notes from you and Mark, and I would love to be able to share that to our community and then plug in, because this is a part of what's made us successful in our lives, is being into these groups, these influences, this atmosphere of passion and bigger thinking that allows us to scale out. Yeah, man.
Well, first of all, I'm not here because I want to promote anything. I'm here because I love you guys. I trust you guys. I have a ton of respect for what you guys have built and how much value you guys give to the audience. So that's what I'm here for. If there is anybody who wants to learn about how to invest in real estate, go to commercialempire.com. And you can learn how to build a rental portfolio. That's what that's all about, and how to really scale it up. So typically it's for somebody who either has money or has done at least has bought one property. If you bought one property, you get the general premise of it. I can show you how to start buying 10 a year, how to buy 100 a year, how to buy 1,000 a year. And if you've built a portfolio, you'll get a ton of value out of it. There's a lot of people who have done, had 10, 20, 30 doors over the course of their entire lifetime, and then all of a sudden pick up 130 doors in the following 12 months after coming out. Like, you guys know Jennings Smith, right? Goes from doing a few doors up to 700 doors in 24 months. There's a lot of people. Javier Hinojo, who's in your market, Chris, has picked up thousands of doors in a matter of a couple months after Commercial Empire. So it's a really, really good. We try to over deliver on that. It's $1,000 for a 3-day boot camp. If you guys are interested in that, plug in. And even if you're not interested in building the rental portfolio, I would take a look at something called Legacy Wealth Academy, lwacademy.com.
Yes.
It's $10 a month, $10 a month. And it's essentially a digital library of master classes taught by other people who are in my highest level mastermind, which is called Legacy Family. And so it's $10 a month. And you plug in and you get a feel for all different. Yeah, Kevin, you're a member of it, and you get a feel for all different ways of building wealth. So if you're interested in real estate, go and dip your toe in it and take advantage of learning the different residential types of ways to invest in real estate. The commercial all the different asset classes. You can learn about self-storage, mobile home parks, Airbnb, apartment buildings, office and retail, like anything like that. You can learn a little bit more about. And then there's a lot of it's mostly entrepreneurial and wealth building. So we have e-commerce, we have how to scale your e-commerce, how to scale your personal brand in social media, how to not only build wealth, but how do you maintain your wealth and protect your wealth. So there's estate planning classes, there's asset protection classes, there's capital raising, money raising, how to raise private money, a couple of courses on that. And a lot of, dude, it is like ridiculous value for $10 a month. And so if you want to take the temperature and see, like, maybe that's probably the best step. And I have like a mini version of Commercial Empire in there. If you like it, then plug into the big version too. And, but I think that's probably the best place for people to get started.
That's great. So on the $10 thing, Tim has like experts in each of these things talking about it.
Dude, they're all the best in the business. Right?
It makes no sense for $10. I remember when I said, I was like, $10, what is he doing? But
it's a no-brainer offer.
He doesn't care.
The goal, right? I want people in there who are there getting the value, and where I get value is, who knows? Maybe there's ways that I can buy deals from them. I can sell deals to them. Maybe I invest in their deals or they invest in mine. So that's really the premise of it, is kind of, leading with a loss leader and providing so much stupid value where people want to be involved in it. And then it allows me to have people who are in my mastermind grow their exposure, right? Grow their eyeballs that people are watching them, and give them a big audience that they can start building up their brand as well. And that's where I get a lot of value too. So it's meant to be a system that provides so much value for everybody who's involved in it. And hopefully we all build a lot of wealth and make a lot of money together.
Absolutely, man.
And
anybody who's in there and spends a couple hours a week, few hours a week instead of Netflix, it's impossible not to make a lot of money in a year. You do that for a year. That's how I look at things like that. If you just do that, do it for a half hour a day, 2 hours a week, it's impossible.
Yep. You can't not fall into a deal. You can't not get inspired. You can't take that education, that knowledge away and realize, dude, it's about making money, and it's about saving money, and it's about the relationships, and it's about, dude, you might not have any interest in mobile home parks, but you go and watch one of those videos and you're like, dude, that's how this guy raises money and structures the deals. I can do that when I'm buying a business over here. And now I could take, dude, boom, boom, boom. What if I had this conversation with my private money investor and planted the seed in a different way or framed it differently? Dude, there's always a takeaway. There's always a nugget that you can take from that and then implement it in your business. And you leave what you don't want and you take what you do want. And but understanding how other people, build their businesses. Dude, I get a ton of takeaways from e-commerce, and I'm in real estate. I get a ton of takeaways from you guys on the business side of things. And I know there's ways that you guys take from real estate and implement those ideas and strategies into scaling businesses, and then, building and raising money and then selling those businesses. So it's like, there's so much value across the board of, in that learning, but making sure you're getting it from the right people and having it all in one spot, I think is a key part of people who are vetted. They're experts. They have 7-figure businesses or 8-figure business. Some of them have 9-figure businesses, and it's not like they're new. They're all part of my mastermind, so they've all been vetted in some capacity and have good core values as well. So that's the important part. You're not just learning from people who know what they're doing. You're learning from people who actually give a shit and want to see you succeed.
Brother, man, I appreciate the value.
This is awesome.
I mean, we're at that hour mark, and I feel like we could keep going.
I know, I could go on forever.
Well, let's do it again. Hit me up anytime, like a couple months from now, and let's jump back in and go to the 200 level, and we'll get even deeper into this stuff, man. No, but I love you guys. I appreciate you. I respect the hell out of you. I love that. We've done a lot of business together already, and we're going to continue to do business. And I love supporting the good guys. And it's just cool to see all of us grow and all of us on our journey. And it's only been a couple years, and can't imagine what it's going to look like 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 20 years from now, and where we all are. It's like, oh man, when you have the long-term vision and you're in it for, impact, it's endless what the opportunities could look like. So excited to be on the journey with you guys. I appreciate you having me.
All right. Thanks so much for coming on, Tim.
I'll see you in Nashville.
All right. Take care, guys.
All right. Man, that was awesome.
Let's see.
Hey, I got to